February is almost over and spring is right around the corner. Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we're going to discuss week 8 of 2022. Let's get going. Well, much like week 7, week 8 started off with a bunch of ice and snow. It was super cold. As the week went along, it got warmer. Today it started off, I don't know, it got down to 30 last night. And it'll be 71 today, I believe. So, yeah, Arkansas, it's crazy. One of the things I guess that saved me at the beginning of this week was I had the inside greenhouse, so I was able to, to get distracted by those plants and such through the early part of the week while the snow was melting. So that was good for us. The water is always good. We were in a bit of a drought, but I believe now we're at our normal moisture levels for this time of year, so that's always good. We're looking at maybe getting some more rain beginning of next week over the weekend. That'll be fine. We could use it, especially for our raised beds that were newer. Now that everything's got the compost in it and that sort of thing, I think it's going to end up working out a lot better for us to get this rain now. All right, so let's take a look at what got accomplished this week. One of the first things we got done after the snow went away was we started working on this bamboo arch. Right now it's not quite completed yet, so what we're going to do with this is we'll just take the rest of these. You can see these larger pieces. We'll take them, span them all the way down to the bottom. We'll run smaller parts through the sides, perpendicular to the beds and such. That way the vines will have something to climb up. So down here in the bottom, that's where it's going to be, and here we're going to plant our acorn squash. So, perfect world, everything works out. This metal one we have over here, we'll have our butternut squash will cascade, and then, towards the end of the year, it'll get down this way. And then our acorn squash will be down here, and it'll climb up and cascade down, and behind that, we'll have our eggplants. So that's sort of the plan at this point. Another thing that we got done earlier this week, we were able to get the peas ready. The buckets, we went ahead, filled them, just used the tips of these bamboo that we had been saving. We'll use those, and then at the base of every one of these poles, we'll put a little pea seed. It'll grow up, makes them super easy to pick. And believe it or not, just using this little bit of fencing here, that keeps the chickens out. For whatever reason, they won't jump in there and eat it, so that works out really well. We have 2 others, and we'll use probably chicken wire around those. We have that laying there. The little white fencing you see there, that was left over from Leslie's herb garden and flower garden, so we just put it to use. We'll use chicken wire for the other ones. I don't believe we've shown this yet, but we did get this completed this week. This is going to be a tomato bed. And what we've done is we've segregated it over here behind the muscadine. And the reason for that is we're only going to plant one type of tomato in this bed, and we'll rotate every 3 years. Every year we'll do another tomato. One year we'll do our cherry tomatoes. Next year we'll do our Romas, and then the following year we'll do our beefsteaks. The reason we've brought them down here is we're going to end up with these poles, much like we did the pallet garden. We'll take these and we'll fasten them around the bed, and we'll cover it with chicken wire. And in addition to that, we will put on a butterfly net like we're going to use for the cabbages. Now, we're doing all of this because we want to make sure that the seeds that are grown down here are true seeds. We don't want to take a risk of them being cross-pollinated with anything, because these will be the seeds that we're going to plant going forward. So if we can keep them, we don't want them, being a hybrid or anything, just to ensure that the tomato we plant is the actual seed that we get. So that's sort of the approach we're taking. Let us know in the comments below, if you save your own seeds, how you prevent them getting crossbred with other species. I'd like to know that. One thing that I didn't quite mention when we were showing the peas and such is we did get the final load of compost for the year. So to fill all of our new raised beds, we ended up with about 6 loads of compost. We had to go out and purchase organic compost. So that was the most expensive part of the additions this year. So we got all of the materials for free. So we paid essentially screws and compost, and we were able to do the two gardens, the old garden that we showed earlier, and this top garden that you can kind of see behind me a bit. We were able to fill all of those for less than $250 total, and that's the compost and the screws all together. So that's not a bad deal. Now we'll go into the year and we'll see how much more vegetables we get. But even if we get the same amount of vegetables, the amount of labor that we have to do going forward, it's going to pay itself off in that, I can tell you already. As I mentioned earlier in the week, the indoor greenhouse kept me entertained. So but we had everything come up. You can see all of our tomatoes. We had mentioned in our seed planting video how we do these half pots so we can fill them as the tomatoes grow. And over here, you know, we've got kale and cabbage and the rest of our tomatoes and such. The eggplant will be moved outside today. So everything in the greenhouse is coming along really well. I did want to point out real fast that even through the ice, the inside of the greenhouse stayed warm even overnight. It would get down to, I don't know, I think the lowest that we saw in here was 38 degrees. And the low outside was 21. So this small little greenhouse really worked off. Now, just so we're clear, we did put it in here and we dropped this. So, you know, it had like a double layer, and that probably helped out significantly. So I am much more confident now leaving these plants outside, especially if we're gonna have like a moderate freeze, so we can leave them on the shelves. If it's gonna get, you know, low 20s, we know that if we put them in this greenhouse here, the internal greenhouse, then they'll make it through those temperatures. So that's very reassuring. Now, as long as the greenhouse will stand up through the spring winds and rain, we may have ourselves something here. So, Otis, are you enjoying the sunshine, buddy? So another thing that we were able to get done this week was to get some of our onion sets in the ground. And I know I'm always harping on the advantages of raised beds and such, but there's still ice on the ground. And as you can see here, these raised beds that we put underneath this leaf litter, you can still work it really good. So it is okay, if you're able to do that, to go ahead and get your onion sets out. So what we'll do is we're just going to, I don't have them in yet, but you can see I plant them closer together. You're supposed to do them about 3.5 inches apart. We like ours closer to about 2 inches. And what we do is at a certain point, we go through and we'll thin out every other one, and it'll take, you know, 2-3 weeks to eat them all. But they are delicious as, you know, new spring onions or as green onions later on in the year. So this way you can thin them out, you can leave some to bulb, and you can enjoy some of them much earlier in the season. So here towards the end part of the week, we started working on getting these raised pallet beds done. On, let's see, I believe Saturday, which will be the 5th of March, that's when we'll be able to plant, it's so awesome, we'll be able to plant carrots, beets, radishes, and I believe those are the 3. I'll let you in on it whenever we plant them, give you a list. And so for the last part of this vlog, what I wanted to do was sort of give you an overview of Ray being silly and the raised beds. Now, about a year ago, we put these in and we did a video on it. I'll put a link right above for you folks who haven't seen it yet. But they have held up incredibly well. They have, they got a lot of moisture in the bottom. I went through and dug a little hole to make sure the bottoms were still holding up, so I wouldn't have some sort of collapse or something, you know, middle of the summertime whenever I'm trying to pull carrots or whatnot. But they've worked out really well. We had to add a minimum amount of compost, except for down here where we have the beets and the carrots. Those beds, they settled a lot. So we probably had to put in, I don't know, probably 6 inches or so of compost in those bottom 2. The rest of them, however, I believe because we had the compost, we went ahead and put just another inch or so in there. But we could have gotten away this year with just the house compost on top of this, what we have in our compost bin. So that was pretty exciting. So since it's going to be so fast coming up, right? Like starting next weekend, as we said, we're going to start planting. And from there, it just does not slow down, I don't think, until like October. So I wanted to give you just sort of an overview of where we're at now with these raised beds. As always, I would like to say thank you to you folks who have made it this far. If you have not, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit the little bell icon. YouTube will let you know when we upload new content. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. Until next time, I hope you folks take care of yourselves. Peace.